The first one is
Or,
to get your results of you considering the attribution question that you had last time, and also to get your, if you can talk me through your arbitration clauses there.
all right, so
Who's
I'm
going
on
to do it?
page 9, so we'll start there. How about that?
Say again, sorry?
So I'm on page 9
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
yeah. Good
Okay,
go.
okay.
Good go.
So we'll go ahead and start there. So my reasoning behind arbitration clauses was that, first of all, there might need to be some sort of control flow of this.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just going straight to arbitration and just calling it a day, there might need to be some sort of mediation session prior to that, and then arbitration.
Okay.
So
All right. Yep.
instead of everything being escalated straight to an arbitrator or moderator, maybe there it's escalated to maybe a sub arbitrator or some other personnel that somebody can agree on to kind of listen to these two sides and see whether or not there can be some sort of mutual agreement sorted.
Mm-hmm.
If not, then it would go to arbitration. So then it would be escalated. So I was just trying to think of reasoning of whether or not there might need to be a mediation
It
circuit breaker
makes
there.
it makes sense because I think where you're going with this is if you immediately move to arbitration, arbitration's got real teeth, especially if there's money in escrow, then there might be hesitation to actually go to arbitration, and that is probably not going to be conducive to actually resolving whatever the issue is. So having a middle ground, which as I read it, essentially this is simply you're going to you're going to put your case to an arbitrator saying we're just this is mediation, this is not arbitration, and you put your thoughts, having considered the merits of the case, onto the chain, and that's
Right.
it, and we'll take it from there, and that will give weight to one or other of the arguments, and maybe the person who doesn't benefit from that will reconsider and go, well, okay, yeah, I've been a bit of a dick. Maybe they won't, and if they don't, then you can escalate to an arbitration as opposed to mediation. And arbitration
But so
is
there's
we will
there's
release it.
non-binding arbitration and then binding arbitration,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I quite like that.
right.
And so the escalation above there. Now there's one linked comment here, which let me find exactly on this. It's whether it's there's a process of appeal. I would argue that there's no appeal on arbitration as you've defined those two. So
Oh
mediation.
yeah, yeah. That was just a general question.
Yeah.
But that I know there's no appeal, but there should be somewhere in the document that says there's no appeal process.
Right. Yeah. No, that's cool. So I've added that. That's fine.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, that's good.
I mean, as long as it's expressed on our end that there's no appeal, then that's it. Like
Yeah.
we're covered. Like if you want to
Exactly.
appeal, like that's cool, but
Exactly.
there's nothing we can do about it. There's no more higher court. You have to go outside of our the DCM.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. At that point, our work here
Yeah.
is done. And
Yeah.
we
We
can't
tried.
supersede
We
anything.
tried
Yeah.
with all good faith. We tried, but you decided to be more of a dick and go outside of that. So
That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
It's the grumpiness grill that we went through, wasn't it?
yeah.
Okay. Good. I agree with both those. Those are good.
Mhm.
And on the attribution, last time you were saying you need to go away and think about this clause because you thought it was duplication.
Yeah. It says down towards the bottom. What page was it?
9 again, and agreement to attribution. Your comment was possible duplication, and then when I was saying I don't think it is, you said you don't understand why you think it is, and so you're going to have to think about it.
Oh no, no, it wasn't duplication. You're right. This was it. This is what I was thinking in my head. This is what the
Right.
mediation, all that. The fact that there was a control flow.
Got it.
That's what was missing in my head. Like that's why I was having such a hard time.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
And so this covers it, all of this. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so if we've got a little bit more time, if we go from top to bottom, I think we're close to clearing off everything.
Yeah.
The shard chain Dreamcatcher instance, I don't see why not calling it the shard chain.
Well, I only put it there because that seems to be the parlance at the moment.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, if we want to call it something else, that's fine. I just don't know what to call it
I think
right now, other than
it's closer than instance, isn't it?
Yeah,
So I think it's a better term. So let's adopt that.
I mean, this is a double-edged sword. Either we can call it a shard chain, and therefore investors would know more better what we're talking about, or we can invent our own term, and investors may or may not know what we're on about. So
This is the problem with definitions, isn't it? I mean, the investor would have
yeah,
to know two things: what chain is, and if they're investing in this, they'll probably understand what chain is. The second thing is they'd have to know what shard is. Maybe not so much.
yeah,
But if we called it, you know, jube, then they'd be forced to go to a definition.
right.
I think shard chain is okay, so let's accept that.
Right.
Going down, I've added some. Yes, that's just the text under arbitration about stating, as you say, no process of appeal. We've talked about that,
Yep.
so
Yep.
clear of that. Okay. Yeah, your comment on page 4, we may need to dispute this core license as immutable cannot be superseded by any other amendment. I think we've already got that covered in the license stack. Is that what you're implying there? So this is page 4, your comment of 17th November.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I was trying to get at is what core means specifically. Like
Yeah,
that's an immutable relay chain. So
yeah,
it's what we deploy as a group and decide as the relay chain or whatever term, mainnet or substrate, whatever we want to call it. And it's immutable as it is, and it's only immutable in terms of the versioning process, wherever we decide that is, rather than just anybody just deciding to change that relay node or the actual substrate of it. I mean, there needs to be like what I'm saying is like, if we release Dreamcatcher 1.0 and somebody wants to make it Dreamcatcher 1.1, right? That's fine, but there should be some sort of process involved as to that pull request and people accepting it. You know what I mean? Like we can't just allow a pull request to come in and just start changing the underlying code base and maybe that person is a malicious actor who is just deciding that, hey, this benefits me, and if I make it so that pull requests and I make this change, and then therefore I can just siphon off, tokens all day, that's not going to help anybody in the protocol. So,
right. So yes, there's nothing stopping anyone putting up a different DPL. I think it's a topic of 2 or 3 calls ago. What we're saying is this DPL is something that you advertise as you've agreed with, and other people who have also advertised, then that's in force. Someone else wants to do something opposite.
Now that I got your attention on that, right? You agree with that? Yeah. I think the same thing should be done with the license. There needs to be a core relay chain of license that can't be immuted or modified without a brute force effort. Like you have to have a 51% attack to be able to change the license file. Is what I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah. I get that.
Yeah. The core license. Yeah. You can put whatever modules you want on, but the core license needs to be immutable.
Right.
Like
yes.
Once you agree to it, that's it. You're done. Like we can't keep changing our minds on this.
Right.
I can't change our minds. We have to agree that this is the core atomic level of a license, and any changes from there has to be extremely difficult and extremely cumbersome and take several months or something like that.
Yes,
it's so burdensome that people won't do it.
Yes, I agree. So there's a couple of points there. So I think we're agreed that there's nothing particularly special about this DPL for someone else doing their own license, but their own license is not this. This is a unitary thing. And the control over this could be subject to pull requests or whatever governance we put around it, but nobody can go in there and mess with that without going through whatever that governance is, and whether that governance is voting rights and so on.
All right, that's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do we
And it
need?
should be a difficult process. It should be something that it's either voted on or something. I don't know what that process is yet. I'm just saying that it needs to be hard, like, like 2/3 majority is sort of hard. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yes, yes. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, what you, and then you've got the problem if it changes too quickly, then if someone's agreed on one version and others move on, well, that original agreement still holds. And so
Right.
you start to have a mismatch and it gets fragmented. So I agree. Now the question is where to
Well,
put
and
that.
I'm worried about the fragmentation being exploited.
Yeah,
And there's an attack vector there.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Um,
Right.
I think what we'll probably ought
That's
to
what
do
I meant
is,
by that.
yeah, I'll probably add that to additional notes because I don't think that's something to state in the license, but that's something to be implemented really.
Oh, completely agree with that.
Yeah,
That doesn't need to be here. It could be in the docs on the GitHub repository. I
yeah,
mean, it's just saying, or inside the code as terms of like, hey, if you want to change the license file in the source code, this is what it's going to take. And that,
yeah.
Tom's asking for pull request. Well, this would be a pull request. Like, it's got to be fucking hard to do this.
And also
You know?
the pull request really just pushes the decision about whether that change goes in or not one step further down. So it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter where
well, I
the
know,
suggestion
but
comes.
yeah, no, but I mean, it's just saying the decision to actually make that request receivable and actually incorporate that should be a fucking hard decision,
Yeah,
you know. And whatever hard decision means, it needs to be captured somewhere in the blockchain.
yeah, cool. Right, so I'm going to put that
Because I
in.
don't know what a hard decision is yet, but you know,
Yes, no, I
but
totally agree.
because you see, because we'll be the founding members, right?
Yeah,
So all four of us right now, we're going to be like the people that go, hey, we're the ones that think that this is our vision of this, and if you don't agree, that's fine. Just fork off and do your own thing. That's cool. Go fork yourself. But but I mean, if you believe in our construct and the way we're going with it, and if you really believe in this initiative, then you should follow our lead, right? And if you follow
yes,
our lead, then you should be following our release schedule and our versioning criteria and all
exactly,
that stuff, right?
exactly,
And that's what
exactly.
we're trying to encourage.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, precisely. And and to be fair, probably the Dreamcatcher, the entire population will be four at the start. So
that's
it's
hey, I'm fine with four, man. That's cool. Four is better than one. That's awesome. I'll take n equals four all day. Like
okay, just looking down. Uh, Objects, yeah, being artifacts. Yes, I sort of. I see what you're saying. The only problem is what I need to do is go through the dictionary because there's a term used as assets, which is quite close to artifacts, and the asset I think is what you might be implying as an artifact there, but objects can also
okay, so
represent.
first of all, the artifact term was just me putting that
Ah,
in there to
ah,
start shaking up the term ghost
mm-hmm.
because I'm having a hard time with ghost because
Right,
that's
because
just
of the
like
cultish thing.
there's no there's zero legal definition for ghost, by the way, in the world. So I like no one knows what a ghost is,
Yeah.
but I mean we know what an artifact is. So I put the word artifact in there to see if the language started making more sense.
Okay. Cool. So one of the things.
So
Sorry.
so artifact doesn't need to necessarily stay. I just put it in as a substitute for now so that we can start talking about maybe other terms that we may want to think about, like
Yes.
a wobble or like a fernode. I don't care what we call it. Like, I really don't. I just think that ghost would be very hard to put through a lawyer, is all. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get you. The At the end of this call, I'll go through what I'm planning on doing next, but to short circuit that a bit is to go through the dictionary with that idea in mind with the cultish thing, and also to make sure it's coherent with this DPLv01. And then we can change the names kind of unilaterally because there's only four of us and we can do it easily now. I've got an
Right.
aversion to changing names as soon as it gets above a certain critical mass, but we're not there yet.
Okay.
But names really do matter, so we'll chew it over. But I've made a note inside of the dictionary to do that. I don't know if you've been in recently,
Okay.
but that's there.
Oh no, I haven't read any of the documents
Yeah.
for the last couple of days. I've been like hard out with this quiz.
What else?
I got 2 quizzes. I got 1 done, good to go. And another one's coming up. So, and after that, I'll be semi-free.
It sounds
So I'll be like,
torturous. It sounds absolutely torturous. Like you're taking actuary exams or something like that.
oh man, I can show you the code, man. It's rough. It's rough. It's a rough thing, man. You gotta literally look at this code and then answer a question as to what you think this code's trying to may or may not do. Like seriously, like
Well,
is
as
it
open as that.
making an external call that's going to be a redundancy or a reentry, or is it going to do this or is it going to do that? Like you gotta make a pretty damn good judgment as to what you think this code is doing. Like, can you tell me if anybody's code is doing anything? Like seriously, like it's code. Like
Well, it's hard enough even when you've written the code yourself after 2 weeks to go back and saying, what the hell was I meant to do?
So,
oh god.
and this is like real world code. Like this is like these are examples from the real world. Like they've taken these things from other contracts that have actually been deployed or been audited. So
yeah,
you know. So I had to go through like 8 or 9 different audit reports and then listen to like 6 or 7 different videos about people talking about that, and then take their quiz, and then hopefully I remember 8% of what they said.
That sounds torturous. Absolutely torturous.
You learn so much. Like there's so much overlap between what I'm doing now and what this project is. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like the timing is insane. Like it really is.
Really
like all the stuff I'm posting in Discord right now, about 80% of it's coming from this course.
Really?
Yeah, like literally, like all these links and everything, and all these other projects that I'm looking at is all from reading specifications and looking at others' audit reports from projects that are very similar to what we're doing. Like
it's interesting, isn't it? The because we've been out in the wilderness for so long now, and we kind of just popped up our head recently with you guys, and. And suddenly there's all this evidence of arrows pointing in the same direction that we've been trying to go. But nobody's actually gone and done it. You know, and there's bits around and it's in kind of orbit around the idea. But
again, everybody's like nipping at the edges and they don't know how to solve that problem yet. But everybody knows it's a problem. They just don't know exactly what the solution is.
Yeah.
And they're hoping their idea is the one that's going to work. So we're one of those market ideas, right?
We'll stick it up and, see who turns up.
Yep. So I mean, I think there were. I'm talking to Tom as well here. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that there might be people biting at this idea might not be far-fetched. You know what I mean? Like since there's there seems to be a critical mass of thought in blockchain space about DAO and all that other stuff, and so this sort of idea won't be so like, oh my god. What are they trying to do? This is ridiculous. It may not be that ridiculous, is what I'm saying. So
that's good to know. It might be quite niche still, but at least within that niche, seems to be a bit of zeitgeist for it.
I don't know. I don't think it's niche. That's what I'm saying. Like I think it's very much zeitgeist now. Like so many people are talking about it that it's becoming the de facto wave of where this is going.
That's lucky, and it looks like they've just started to really think about that. Maybe they put in a year or so. Whereas we've been thinking about this for God knows how long, many years.
2 projects, including ours, are thinking about the legal aspect of this. So, because everyone's still thinking in the smart contract space. That's the smart contract save you from everything, right? Which it doesn't, because it doesn't save you from fraud. It doesn't save you from about a dozen other attack vectors.
Yeah.
But what would save you is some sort of legalized escrow service that's on the blockchain, right?
An earthing to something with teeth, yeah.
All right. So if you were to put a smart contract on Dreamcatcher and you say, hey, by the way, we're collateralized and escrowed, right? How much more of your DApp would have in terms of like reputation if you had a functionalized legal system underneath your DApp saying, oh, by the way, we have escrow. Yes. Like, who's offering escrow? No one's offering escrow. Like, by the way, if we go down, we not only are we escrowed, we're bonded. We have a bond, so we have some sort of legal license, and we also have some sort of insurance behind this. Yeah. And then that bond goes out to the shareholders if this shit goes bust. Like, that's insane. Like no one's doing that.
I think there's also there's almost a mirror with companies who would never dream of working on smart contracts. So what you described is like, okay, the danger of smart contracts now and the benefit of adding a legal structure behind it. But a
Right.
company with a CTO, you might be interested and be keen and so on, but he's got to make that argument to the CFO and the CEO and doesn't want to lose his job and has a legal department, needs something like this. And that
Right.
currently, it's excluded from it because what's he going to do? Turn up with
Well,
the code?
I mean, I don't know if Tom's told you, but I told him that like the way I envisioned the dream catcher, the way he describes it to me, anyways, and I could be wrong, but this is the way he describes it to me. It's very much a bolt-on feature of existing business structures that are already in the environment that can't
Yeah.
that do not have the momentum to change into this sort of space, but could use this as a bolt-on feature or an existing structure.
Yeah.
So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is the gaming space. Let's say I'm Epic Games and I have Call of Duty and Battlefield and 1,000 other games out there that are like huge franchises, but the source code is such that I cannot put NFTs in the source code. Not going to happen. I could bolt this on, and it could be a layer that sits on top of those games, right? And
Yeah.
it could essentially NFT the assets underneath those, right?
Right.
Because it would just be this layer that sits on top that's very efficient, very low level, just calling and working at 70,000 microseconds or whatever it is. Like no one would care. Like no one would notice.
Yeah.
Because you'd only need to worry about it in certain situations. You wouldn't have to worry about in game necessarily unless you're collecting something, right? You'd only have to worry about it like at an auction site or buying and selling goods or whatnot. So
Yeah.
you
And
know,
what will happen?
like that
It'll just fade into
order.
it'll fade into the background. It'll become just part of the infrastructure.
Right.
It's not something you
Right.
need to consider, and it's therefore not going to be a barrier to use. It's just it
Exactly.
just works.
And the other one was gave me was like using it as open source MRP ERP for like medical device manufacturing because that's something that I would need it for. Like so, if I have an MRP system, but I want an NFT the product from like literally raw material all the way to end of life, then I could take this thing and just bolt it straight onto the MRP system that I'm already using, and it would NFT everything in the product structure, right? So we're done. It has an entire stack. It's good to go. And it can run inside internally. I don't need it to be talking to some external blockchain necessarily, but I could bolt it on and I would already have everything would have a unique number all the way from the raw material that it used all the way out to when it's being recycled or destroyed in whatever medical device facility it's being used in. And that's like that sort of tracking of life cycle for medical devices is so keen. It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
people need that so much, and there's nothing there. By the way, there's no open system right now that does that. There's some that try to do it. They don't do very good. Like you still have to manually type in a lot of code and know your way around a lot of manual structures. But there's nothing that comes close to actually tracking down to like seriously from like the batch that comes in from the warehouse all the way out to the batch that goes to the patient. Doesn't happen. There's nothing there. Other than SAP and all this other stuff, which is so expensive, it's ridiculous. Like nobody wants to pay for that.
And the drawbacks, of course, as well. It's the sort of thing that you can only really do multi-chain. There's like there's a technical barrier there that stopped it. People thinking about it and wanting this and generating a demand for it, but not being able to implement it and having to shoehorn it into inappropriate architectures. So I think that's the thing that's really
or not just inappropriate, but mismatched. Like it wouldn't even work. That underlying substrate would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. It wouldn't work. Like there's nothing there to actually. There's nothing to admit or call or push or anything or pull or anything there where the code would actually recognize it. So.
Yeah, and remembering that to get those companies or those organizations or individuals who wouldn't previously even think about doing smart contracts because of the sphincter factor. I'm going to be ruined, I'm going to get kicked out and so on. To reduce that barrier to the point where actually they can print out something, take it to their lawyer, they can take out the audit certificate for the underlying DCM and say, yeah, it's doing what it says it's going to do according to these guys, and these guys are good, and you're good to go. So even if if there is a fuck up later on, and there's always vulnerability somewhere, at least you've done your due diligence as the decision maker inside of the company, and that gatekeeper, that decision maker gatekeeper, is this thing that's really stopping this kind of technology benefit in a lot of places, and they just won't
Right.
touch it because it's going to come down to them. And who would? I mean, I've not really gone into it, but I spent a lot of time moving back in infrastructures for banks and running online census for Scotland back in 2011 and so on. And these are big projects, and to some extent, everyone is covering their arse. It's like
Oh no,
it's too
cover your
big.
ass is the
It's
name
just
of the skill. That's
yeah,
it. That's all it is.
yeah,
Everybody is CYA. That is the name of the game, man.
yeah, yeah,
Like whether it comes to Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, you name it all. Like everything's about CYA, man.
yeah.
How does this make you look, and does it make you look good? That's all they give a fuck about.
Exactly. And the thing with covering your arse is, it's a kind of pejorative term, but it really is. It's you've got a low risk appetite. But
Right.
by putting a structure like this in, you're actually reasonably reducing the risk, and so you can make a good argument for it, and then you can talk then about the benefits of it.
Well, the thing is, there's no market for it right now. No one's offering a bolt-on solution for blockchain. Nobody. Nobody. People are talking about it a little bit. Not really. They don't know what they're talking about yet. But there's no project out there, not Harmony, not Polkadot, not anybody, that's talking about like, hey, if you're an existing business, maybe you can just use our product. The only other product I can think of that's even close to this is VeChain. That's it. Maybe VeChain is bolt-on. Maybe I don't know the architecture structure, but I do know that supply chain. So there's that, but I don't know how intricate it gets. I don't know what the ERP system looks like, but I do know that it does a supply chain pull requests of like down the chain. That's about all I know. But I don't know how bolt-on. I don't know if he's like what sort of code you have to write. If I go, hey, VeChain, come in and like rewrite my software, is it an entire rewrite or from source code, or is it like something that I can actually use on several different like Bond or SAP and about a dozen other systems? But this system looks to me like it's lightweight enough that you could just basically just seriously stick it on something and say, here you go, NFTs, because it doesn't care. It doesn't really care. All you got to do is point to the things and say, this is the NFTs. And just go, oh, okay, that's the NFT. Great. Like, and here's a chain ID, here's the hash.
Yeah.
Cool, rock on. Like, we're rolling,
And with the use of multi-view as well, recognizing that as soon as you've got more than one organization or individual interacting, they could have different views about things. And you should be able to actually handle that. Then you get past this point of saying, well, if I've got an NFT for a thing, how does, if someone else disagrees with it, how do we resolve that? And that, again, comes down to the evidence inside of the object formerly known as Ghosts, which we'll change the name of. And the filters allow you to have a different multi-view on it and saying, well, okay, so what's this guy saying? Why is he saying that car belongs to this guy and I think that car belongs to that guy? And what's the earthing event that we can actually turn into the real world? And it becomes real simple.
You touch on like the biggest problem where ERP and MRP has failed most businesses. Like when I was at Solar Turbines and they were integrating Bond, like Bond came in and said, look, 80% of the software works just fine. The other 20% is the politics. The politics are marketing's going to say they derive the business, or engineering's going to say they drive the business, CEO's going to say they drive the business, and all you guys are going to do is be in a conference room for like literally 2 years arguing over who drives the business, and then you're all going to fail because the process is going to die because of aptitude, and no one's going to want to care. Like this would short circuit that, because everybody could have their own version of this inside their MRP system, and they could filter it as they see fit. So marketing can go, all right, I'm going to put in my marketing request, and that's a request that goes on the chain. Internet can go, cool, I recognize that, and I'm going to take that and do something with it, or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it becomes a project that sells or not. Like, and I just really foresee this as being a really top level bolt-on system for a lot of companies that really struggle with blockchain.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I agree.
really don't need to struggle. And if we make it easy enough for them, they won't. It could literally just be like, we just turn this on, man, and it works.
Well, all this struggle is to get to the point of making it easy, isn't it? That's the thing that
Agreed.
takes time. Okay, I don't want to take too much of your time on Thanksgiving. I think probably another 10 minutes I've got as well. We can rattle down. I think this might be it, actually. Yes, that's it. So
Yep.
I'll go through and tidy up and accept some of these comments just after this call.
Oh,
But
no, never mind. Just we answered that one. Agreed.
yeah,
Your full request, and
yep. I'm just going to go ahead and
I just put a
accept
comment
those.
line there that it made some modifications to the dictionary. I'm not sure if you had a care about that. Objects, we talked about that.
Yep.
Artifact I told you about. Unique interpret goes, talked about that. Also duplication, we've already gone through that. Yeah, that's pretty much clear as it.
Yeah, cool. So, right. Because I know you need to go back into quiz world, auditing world, and probably you're saying Monday for the next call.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So that gives me quite a bit of time. So what I'm going to spend that on is the next step is I'm going to write a kind of test module, an example module, and see if we can get the hooks in that make sure that it's subservient to the DPL.
Right.
And it'll probably be a very light module in terms of payload, but it's getting to make sure that the wording is right and it's clear that this is part and it needs to be coherent with the DPL, and it needs to be complete in its own right, and it's modular in that it can't refer to other things. It's got to go through the DPL. So I'm going to give that a go. The second part then is on the contract, or I think we renamed it, wasn't it? I can't remember. Anyway, the contract. I'm going to try and get the parameters. I've actually got them written up elsewhere. Pull the parameters in and see what would happen if you had that stack, that you had that printout. Because at that point, I think we could have actually something that stacks together as a complete contract. And I think
I was going to mention that too. Like we can put in like source code there that would show like what a printout would look like.
Right.
For a contract stack.
Yeah.
Like as an example, in the appendices, like you could show like what the code would be, like print this, print that, print code, like this, take like pull from, these different modules, and it would look like something that would look like an actual legal document where you can actually have a signature line at the end if need be.
Yeah, exactly. And there probably is, likewise with the hooks from the modules into the DPL, there'll be hooks from the contract into the DPL, which considers the modules. And there may be a bunch of definitions inside the contract, which you don't need inside the DPL. Things like, what do we mean by termination date? And things like that. So these are parameters we're talking about, as opposed to concepts inside the DPL.
One question I had. Okay, so I've been meaning to ask you guys this, Tom, too, for a while now. Okay, so I'm not a software engineer. I don't come from the software engineering field. I come from mechanical engineering. So I have a different perspective on design and development, right? So you, Rex, and Tom seem to have this fixation with dictionary. Is that a software thing?
No.
No? Okay.
This is one through hard experience. I mean, people. Let's see. The first time that I really got burned for not having a dictionary was actually alongside Tom. We got burned at the same time. The software industry has this tendency, as I did before then, to just say, "Oh, it doesn't matter what it's called. It just does what it does." So long as the definition's right, we can change. We can change the
dangerous.
name. Yeah, exactly. And we got roasted.
I call that roasted. Plywood. No, I don't call that plywood. I call that steel. It's different fucking things, bro.
And
different properties, man. Like.
And so we got roasted so hard. Actually, we started going, well, and it was actually by reference to heavy industry. The guy who roasted us, his background was in heavy industry, and it's like, how on earth can you actually even talk without having a definition of the stuff you're talking about. And prior to that, well, certainly from my experience, it was so in software, we make stuff up all the time, and it's like, if you want to know what I mean by that, go look at the code, or we have our own way of talking about it that might be true in this team but different for another one. A bit like naming variables. And the closest that software really gets to it is coding conventions, but coding conventions is not really it. So, but in heavy industry, if you're designing a car, if you call a widget and then change the name to widget 2, that really matters. And you're not talking about the same thing.
Yeah,
and you waste a lot.
Talking about life or death there when you do that.
Yeah, exactly. So you're probably sitting here saying, why is that such a...
If widget 2 hasn't been tested.
You're probably saying, why are they saying that this is such a big thing? Why do they keep on
No.
it?
I mean, I understand the purpose. I completely appreciate the purpose.
It's probably
just
normal.
When Rex joined, his first thing he said was, "Is there a dictionary?" And I was thinking to myself, is there something I'm missing in software? Like, is there a dictionary thing that happens in software that I'm not now missing?
It's not commonplace, but it's
okay.
It's as closest to a creed as we've got. Is you start with a dictionary, but also by trying to define these, what you do is you actually start to understand what the limits and functionality required of the software is.
Well, okay, so in my mind, what this dictionary is, and I'm just going to throw this out there, Tom, is that this is a specification, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you right now, it is. It's a specification. It's part of the. I mean, it doesn't need to be inside the specification, but it definitely needs to be referred to by the specification.
Oh yeah.
These are the terms we're using.
Yeah.
So I would say you guys have literally started making the specification, whether or not you knew it or not. That's what you've done. And I'm just going to go in and just start like translating that into metrics. So.
Yeah. I guess you could call it specification because it arose from the driving need to actually know what we're talking about when we talk about a thing.
I'm just saying from an audit perspective, if you were to have a dictionary and a specification with requirements that went to a hazard analysis, to an FMEA, back to deliverables and verification validation, the audit team would be like, the hell, man, this is the best thing we've ever seen. We know exactly what we're talking about. Like,
that's good. Good to know.
This is a dream. This is a dream project for an auditor. That's what I'm saying.
Ah, that's good to know.
That's
good to know.
So it's like overly specified is awesome in my view.
There was if you saw where we came from, you understand why we spent so much time on that and so much effort, and why it's perhaps overly specified. Is it actually helped drive the entire thinking of the from quite an amorphous idea and a general head start to something specific.
I can fully see and understand that.
Yeah.
And I know just from reading the dictionary, it's not like you guys came up with this stuff like overnight. It looks like it was months and months of work to go through that. Like,
yeah.
That's literally a dictionary. That's literally like, what is it, 20-something pages? Like, come on, like you can't just.
Yeah.
It's a manifesto.
It's only 20 pages. I thought it was more than that.
I don't know. I can't remember.
It's 63 pages.
Okay, I was being nice.
Yeah.
So I mean, what I'm saying is that I'm gonna have to go through this dictionary with the specification and make sure that I cover most of the terms that are in there.
Yeah. So, cool.
Now, you don't need to define it, by the way. You just need to say see dictionary. So.
Yep.
That's a get out of jail free card. We don't have to redo it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Because as long as we have a documentation there that says what the dictionary is, and that it's important to refer to that, then anybody coming after us reading this will know where to go. Yeah. And that's all we care about.
Well, you'll love the next step, which Tom and I started a few months ago and then paused in order to do this task.
The next step.
The next step of specification is to translate the dictionary terms into test modules, and so then you've got code.
No, that's fine, but that's days away. That's eons, man. That's months. Like, we don't need to do that right away. No way. That's going way ahead of schedule. Like like we need a specification first. That's what we need.
Yeah.
We need the specification requirements. Then we know what we're testing to and for in the metrics.
Yeah.
Other than that, we're flying blind.
It's not so much for that. It's to use the test script as a very precise way of getting rid of any remaining ambiguity in the definition.
What are you talking about? Fuzzing the dictionary, or
No. So the dictionary for a definition might be quite wordy, and if two people read it, they might get slightly different ideas still, and that's inevitable because it's just natural language. What the intention is to actually write a script, a test script, which is not necessarily there to test, but it's there to define exactly what we mean. So there's kind of the natural language definition has a code definition, which shows precisely what we mean by that, and also it doubles as a test.
When you mean code, are you talking about comment code or proper
No,
code?
actual test code. It's a test script that can be
Test
run.
code. So like, if I were to say like, I have an artifact, you're saying that should be like underscore artifact something in the code that says what that variable means or something, or and it relates back to the dictionary. Or
yes, probably the best thing is offline after this call.
Okay.
I'll send over the access to it, and you can have a look. But in essence,
Okay.
yes, it's a way of very precisely showing how these different defined objects interact in a way that removes any remaining ambiguity whatsoever. That's the intention. And we've started.
Well, I'll push back on the ambiguity, but okay.
Yeah.
I assure you, there's ambiguity.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's. However, the most precise way we can think of, or I can certainly think of, in order to define what you mean, is actually to write code that does, and say this code does what I mean. Now, whether the code is written correctly and so on is another question. But if that is the definition of your definition, then that's very precise. It's a very precise syntax way of doing it.
So we're saying that our code is perfect, right?
No, we're actually defining what we mean ultimately in tests. So it's like,
Okay.
if you want to know what we mean by I don't know, writing a comment. So we've got natural language description of what a comment is and what you can and can't do, and then there's probably more than one test scripts that say this is actually, if this test passes, then that's what we mean by writing a comment, for example. I'll send it over. I think you'd be interested.
Okay, so what we're talking about is return variable verification. Is that what we're saying?
No, although yes, that's part of it, but it's also the specific flow. So a lot of the dictionary, there's always two parts of the dictionary, right? There's defining what a thing is, and then how that thing interacts. And the interacts part can get really quite complex, especially when you're talking about something like this, and you're talking about various different things that's interacting with in different states that it's interacting under. And the scripts are really there in order to capture that. So
right. No, I understand that. But I'm saying if I were to take a script snippet, let's say I grab a snippet for a particular definition, and I throw it in my code, I should be able to put a return variable under there that returns the verification of that definition, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, right. But all right, that's fine. Like, so there should be what I'm saying is that there should be, on top of what you said, there should be the next step for the test is the verification script that says it is what it is, right?
Yep. Precisely. Yeah.
It only returns, this function only returns this particular thing. That's it.
Yeah.
It's not going to return anything else, and I can do all the fuzzing and other testing I want, and it's only going to come back to being, Todd or Mark or whatever the script says definition is going to be,
Precisely.
Right? Am I in the right?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
So that's the intention. But there's been some work done on that already, which I'll dig out and send over. And just slow time, not this weekend, because you're busy.
You don't need to do that right now.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Just
in
case you're curious.
Wait till Tuesday, man.
Right. Okay.
If you send it, I will read it, and God damn it, it's going to distract me. So.
Right. Not doing it. Okay. Right. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do over the weekend. And I'll get something in the diary for Monday morning to go over the output from that.
Cool. Cool, cool, cool.
I think probably now take your mind offline from this and going to your other stuff. Make sure you nail
Yep.
that.
No, I will be. I will. I'll be in one other meeting. I'm gonna be in. I'm gonna just be auditing Tom's call with Rex, and that's it. I'm just gonna be listening. I'm not gonna be participating. I'm just gonna be there to see if I
Yep.
can listen to pick up anything that's important for specification requirement stuff, and that's
Yep.
about it.
Yep. Cool.
And that's all I'm there for. And that's pretty much gonna be. Other than that, I'm not gonna be reading anything. So I will be contributing in Discord, but I won't be reading
Yeah.
licenses or anything else. So
Yeah. No, that's cool. And that's good. That gives me 4 clear days
okay.
To get through my backlog of stuff that, as we've been talking, I think actually we need to go back into the dictionary and so on and sort that part out.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah,
good.
so
That
after
works.
this lecture, obviously it's Tom's how to run a business
Say again,
thing.
sorry?
So
What was that, sorry?
because after this license, it's going to be how do we present this as a business, right? Like,
Yeah. That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
and that's going to be a serious hard requirement because we have to get through that before the 11th.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I put something into Discord actually earlier on that.
No, I saw it, man. I saw it.
Yeah, there's and it's probably wrong or incomplete, and certainly incorrect in some areas. But I think that's where we need to start thinking about this in terms of the guy at the other side of the fence,
Right.
the gatekeeper.
Yep.
All right, nice one. Right, enjoyed this
Yeah,
as
great.
always.